Hey, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a great day, a blessed day, and getting 1% better than yesterday from whatever is holding you back. And I'm doing the same today, December 22nd. The days are starting to get a little bit longer now. I'm loving it. And I just finished up a chapter of How to Think Big with the Magic of Thinking Big. I'm going to go through some highlights of the chapter after I discuss a couple thrift store finds, and I did go out and do some gig economy work this morning. I made $70 in about 3 hours. Loved every second of it. Deliveries were short. It was all actually in-store shopping. It was very peaceful. I learned where a few things were. It was overall a great morning. This afternoon, there's something called a high flyer at my daughter's elementary school, and they're both getting high flyer. They're going to be super excited, and they don't know, so my wife and I are going to go at about 1:45 and watch that presentation. And then I'm going to wait tables tonight, Friday, and Christmas Eve. And then I'm going to have 4 days off from the restaurant. So I'm looking forward to that. And I just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. One of the greatest gifts I could ever think of is the connections that I made on here and the inspiration and benefits that I received from them. So thank you very much. I'm so happy for that, and I hope you all have a wonderful and safe holiday. I'll get into the thrift store scores I scored yesterday. Just a couple things. This is with the Atlantic sleeve, a Led Zeppelin 45 record, Immigrant Song, and Hey Hey, What Can I Do? 10 to 12 bucks. Paid 49 cents. The Rolling Stones, this is with the picture sleeve, 20 bucks. So there's 32. Paid, I think, 50 cents for that. This is an old 78 RPM record. Keep an eye on some of these. Some have value. 30 bucks right here for this guy. It's Southland Jubilee Singers, some gospel music from, I think, the 20s. Spiritual Sacred record. So I'm thinking 30 for that. And then I saw this Vintage Champion t-shirt. Paid $4 for it. The tag jumped right out at me. It's good to recognize some of the tags on vintage clothing. I just jumped on it. I didn't even look it up. It was on a rack that was not even put out yet, and nothing crazy. I'm thinking 10 to 15 bucks. I'll double my money. But it was cool to see a vintage t-shirt out there. All right, so let's get into the magic of thinking big, how to think big. There's some great info in here. So he goes, where success is concerned, people are not measured in inches or pounds or college degrees or family background. They are measured by the size of their thinking. Now let's see how we can enlarge our thinking. He says, what is my greatest weakness? Humans' greatest weakness is self-deprecation, mostly. Selling oneself short, and I've been there. I'm not good enough for the job, so why bother? Or Jim wants a date with Joan, but he doesn't call her because he thinks he wouldn't rate with her. I've been there too. Philosophers for thousands of years have issued good advice. Know thyself. But most people, it seems, interpret this suggestion to mean know only thy negative self. Most self-evaluation consists of making long mental lists of one's faults, shortcomings, and inadequacies. We tend to focus more on the negative than we do on the positive. It goes on to say, with language, suppose you tell a group of people, I'm sorry to report that we've failed. What do these people see? They see defeat and all the disappointment and grief in the world failed. Now suppose you said instead, here is a new approach which I think will work. They should feel encouraged, ready to try again. Suppose you say we face a problem. You've created a picture of something difficult, but then instead say we face a challenge, and you create a mind picture of fun, sport, something pleasant to do. Or tell a group we incurred a big expense, and people see money that's spent that will never return. But instead say we've made a big investment. The point is, big thinkers are specialists in creating positive, forward-looking, optimistic pictures in their own minds and in the minds of others. To think big, we must use words and phrases that produce big mental images. He goes through a couple examples, negative, then positive, big. It's no use we're whipped, or we're not whipped yet. Let's keep trying. Here's a new angle. The market is saturated. Imagine 75% of the potential. And this guy goes, well, imagine 25% of the market is still not sold. Let's see. Competition has all the advantage. How do you expect me to sell against them? Or competition is strong. There's no denying that, but no one has all the advantages. Let's put our heads together and figure out a way we can beat them. Nobody will want this product, or in its present form, it may not be saleable, but let's consider some modifications. So he just goes through some examples of small versus big positive thinking. There's 4 ways to develop the big thinker's vocabulary. Number 1, use big, positive, cheerful words and phrases to describe how you feel. If someone asks how you feel today, should you say, I'm tired, I have a headache, I wish it were Saturday, I don't feel so good? Or, how are you feeling today? Just wonderful, thanks. And you? Great, fine. Use those positive words. I try to use those positive words sometimes in the kitchen where it can be a negative place. And really, you're that good. Sometimes I almost got to tone it back for the room. But I have been definitely focusing on using big, cheerful greetings when describing how I feel. And my dad says he hates the line, same old, different day. I try to never use that, same old. Every day is a gift, a blessing. Number 2, use bright, cheerful, favorable words and phrases to describe others. He's a really fine fellow. Or they tell me he's working out wonderfully. Don't use petty language. Number 3, use positive language to encourage others. Compliment people personally at every opportunity. Everyone you know craves praise. Have a special word for your wife or husband every day. Notice and compliment the people who work with you, and praise sincerely. And there's not a lot of backslapping in the kitchen, pats on the back. You're kind of just expected to do your job. You can do 1,000 things right, and then the negative thing gets hammered. That's kind of what I talked to my boss about, and I think he is lightened up these last 2 weeks. It's actually pretty crazy. But I always try to say some calm and positive language in the kitchen. Number 4, use positive words to outline plans to others. Here's some good news, or whether we like it or not, we've got a job to do. Then he goes, see what can be, not just what is. So number 1, what gives real estate value? Most of the rural property around here is run down and not very attractive. I'm successful because I don't try to sell the farm as it is. I decide to develop an entire sales plan around what the farm can be. So look what things can be, not just what they are. Number 2, how much is a customer worth? This customer at the store, the grocery store, goes up and buys something for 39 cents. This is an old book. And the cashier tells him it's 49 cents. And he's like, well, the only reason I picked this out, money's a little tight right now. I need it for 39 cents. No, you have to pay, whatever. You got to pay it right now. So the guy didn't want to make a big scene. He ended up paying for it, but he said, I'll never shop there again. And this is a guy who spends $200 a month there. So make sure you know how much a customer is worth before you cut them off. Number 3, the case of the blind milkman. Guy says, the milkman says, why should I even stop there? It's just a couple. They don't drink that much milk. But he did not notice there will be a new addition there that will consume lots of milk. The family's growing. And then they just get tons and tons of milk from the next milkman with their 3 kids over the next 5 years. So don't be the blind milkman. And number 4, what determines how much you are worth? He goes to say, my friend was really speaking from the heart, and after a moment's pause, he added, if I looked at myself strictly as I am, old car, low income, cheap apartment, hamburger diet, I couldn't help but be discouraged. I'd see a nobody, and I'd be a nobody for the rest of my life. I've made up my mind to look at myself as the person I'm going to be in a few short years. And that is something I've been doing for a while. First, it brings hope, and it's not, you need action, though, to bring the hope. Who do you want to be in a few short years? So you got to make the moves to work on the car, work on the income, work on the living arrangement, work on the diet. And within 4 or 5 years, you can be somebody who's debt-free, who has a paid-off car, can afford to eat healthy, better food, who lives in a paid-off house. So that's how I looked at myself. When I was going through that, going to work, I knew I had a plan, and every day that money that I was making was getting me one step closer to freedom. So here is how you can develop your power to see what can be and not just what is. I call these practice adding value exercise. So he reminds you 3 things. Number 1, practice adding value to things. Remember the real estate example. How can you add value to just that vacant lot? Well, describe what that vacant lot could be. Number 2, practice adding value to people. Ask, what can I do to add value to my subordinates? What can I do to help them be more effective? There's times when I'm working, I feel like I'm on defense. And man, when I can play offense, it's nice. It's a nice feeling. And number 3, add value to yourself. Conduct a daily interview with yourself and ask, what can I do to make myself more valuable today? And watch how big you get. Many people, potentially powerful people, let small, petty, insignificant things block their way to achievement. Let's look at 4 examples. What does it take to make a good speech? Why? The reason is simple. Most people concentrate on the small, trivial things of speaking at the expense of the big, important things. In preparing to give a talk, most people give themselves a host of mental instructions like, I've got to remember to stand straight. Don't move around. Don't move your hands. Don't let the audience see your notes. Remember, don't make mistakes in grammar, especially don't say for he and I. Say him and me. Be sure your tie is straight. Speak loud, but not too loud. Now see what happens when the speaker gets up to speak. He's scared because he's given himself a terrific list of things not to do. He gets confused in his talk and finds himself silently asking, have I made a mistake? He is in brief a flop. A flop because he concentrated on petty, trivial, relatively unimportant things of a good speaker and failed to concentrate on the big things that make a good speaker, which is knowledge of what he's going to talk about and an intense desire to tell it to other people. Because the real test of a speaker is not did he stand straight or did he make any mistakes in grammar, but rather did the audience get the points he wanted to put across. And that's how I look at myself with telling specials at night, with talking on these videos. There's words I can't even say sometimes. Toxicity was one I stumbled over. In the Bible, asphyxians, I still can't say it. I think Sam tried to correct me. I need to maybe hear it. He goes, all these successful public speakers have one thing in common. They have something to say, and they have a burning desire for other people to hear it. And I hope I have that, and I hope that comes across. Number 2, what causes quarrels? Little things, petty thinking causes arguments. So, to eliminate quarrels, eliminate petty thinking. I like the concept of addition by subtraction. So, eliminate quarrels by getting rid of the small thinking. And like we talked about yesterday, eliminate the desire for more to accentuate the power of what you have. So here's a technique that works. Ask yourself, is this really important? In most cases, it isn't, and you avoid conflict. Ask yourself, is it really important if he or she is messy with cigarettes or forgets to put the cap on the toothpaste or is late coming home? Is it really important if she squandered a little money or invited some people I don't like? When you feel like taking negative action, ask yourself, is this really important? That question works magic in building a finer home situation. It also works at the office too. It works in going home from traffic when another driver cuts ahead of you. It works in any situation in life that's apt to produce quarrels. My dad has a statement that says, don't keep score. And I always think of a waiter who would keep score, who used to work where I worked, and he'd just be so angry all the time. Don't keep score, don't keep score. Number 3, John got the smallest office and fizzled out. He let resentment, bitterness, and jealousy build up. Don't let it happen. Number 4, even stuttering is a detail. They were looking for a salesman who had a pretty bad stutter. And he goes, even a speech impairment in a talker's profession is a triviality if the person has the big qualities. And he was a good salesman. He didn't let his speech impediment bother him, so why should it bother anyone else? So practice these 3 procedures to help yourself think above trivialities. Number 1, keep your eyes focused on the big objective. Number 2, ask yourself, is this really important? And number 3, don't fall into the triviality trap. Then he says, take this test to measure the size of your thinking. There's the petty thinker's approach and the big thinker's approach. And I'll just go through a few of these. Progress. Petty believes in retrenchment or at best the status quo. Big believes in expansion. Work looks for ways to avoid work or looks for more ways and things to do, especially helping others. Competition competes with the average. Big competes with the best. Goals and vision sets goals low or sets goals high. Sees only the short term or sees the long term. Surrounds himself with petty thinkers or surrounds himself with persons of large progressive ideas. Mistakes, this is one for me, magnifies minor errors, turns them into big issues like we talked about. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill, or ignores the errors of little consequence and just moves on. And finally, to recap it, it pays in every way to think big. Remember, don't sell yourself short. Number 2, use a big thinker's vocabulary. Number 3, stretch your vision of not just what is, but what can be. Number 4, get the big view of your job. Think, really, your present job is important. The next promotion depends mostly on how you think toward your present job. And number 5, think above trivial things. Focus on the big. A lot of great info there. I hope it suits you well. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you're breaking free. Think big, and I'll talk to you on the next video.